All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jackie Travieso. You have joined the MVP Office Hours for February 2nd. Thank you so much for joining us today. Normally, I am joined by my co-host, Jared Kingston and Dale Ziegler. Both have been called away to other responsibilities today, so I am flying solo, doing both the tech and the talk, so we'll see how this goes. We always start out with a list of upcoming Dreaming events, which are all community-led. Hopefully everybody is aware of these type of events. If not, they are run by local community members in your regions. So these are not Salesforce events, although there is a Salesforce presence, obviously. We always like to invite our Salesforce partners and our various sponsors to attend these events. Anyway, you've got a list of them there. That you can check out. You can also go to that bit.ly that I've provided, SF Dreams, and you can get to the latest and greatest. I have heard that there are some additional Down Under Dreamins coming. So in addition to Sydney, I believe there are two others, Brisbane and one other that is escaping me right now. But you can take a look at that and check that out. We also have Witness Success that's going to be held in Denver this year. So you might want to pop in and take a look at that one as well. So just to, for those who are new for our call, we hold these calls the first and third Fridays of the month. Our next call will be the 16th. To register for these calls, you can do a couple of different things. One, you can go to that bit.ly listed on your screen and register. You can also follow us on Twitter, and you can also follow us on the Success Community, formerly known as the Success Community, now known as the Trailblazer Community. This is simply a Q&A discussion. We give everybody the opportunity to ask questions, and then everybody has an opportunity to pop in and share their answers, their recommendations, their additional questions. Again, this is just an open Q&A discussion. We generally have a handful of MVPs on the line, and I put out a really quick call for help today since Dale and Jared were both pulled away. So we do have a couple of additional MVPs on the line that I don't think we've heard from in a bit. So it's great to have you all on the line. Really appreciate you coming to our rescue today. If you have questions regarding like code or complex processes, we might want to point you to posting those on Answers so the entire community can join in, the community from across the world. They can join in and help troubleshoot your code or your specific automation that might require some more in-depth back and forth. That's probably the best place to get those types of responses. We are recording today's call. We'll post it to Twitter and the Trailblazer community. And I've already asked everyone to go ahead and please mute if you haven't had a chance to do that. That way you can control muting and unmuting. And a couple of ways to ask questions. You can either raise your hand in the chat window or in the participant window, or you can go ahead and pose your question in the chat and we will go ahead and read that off. Please announce yourself so that we know and we can match names with voices. And again, everyone is welcome to share their experiences. And let's go to actually, I found a resource this week that I wanted to share with everyone. It's called Code Clinic. This is a great place for developers to register, if you will, for some additional help around their code. So the way that I understand it is they take what they call patients and 30 observers for a 45-minute call, and you can share your code, talk about the challenge that you're having, and then they will give you, let's say, some kind of diagnosis, and then give you some guidance. So this is something that is relatively new, and I believe that they are also recording their calls. So you can go to thecodeclinic.com and check out their past recordings and register for any of their upcoming dates. So I thought that was a really cool, new, and unique resource that you all should take advantage of if you have the need. And let's go ahead and open up this call. What do you guys want to talk about today?
Hi, this is Pat McClellan. I'm a developer based in Berkeley, California. I have developed, I'm relatively new to the ecosystem. I left my job at an agency and trained myself as a developer over the last 6 months. Over the last 2 months, I have built a custom app that does SMS texting, Lightning Native. I want to package this up and get it on App Exchange, but as an independent developer using nothing but a developer edition, I need guidance on navigating both the partner community and App Exchange. Everything that I read about, every time I try to go to the partner site and start reading there's tons of information, but it's all really seems to be focused on companies, not individuals. And as an independent developer, that I don't have, a big staff and 12 certifications that can get me in the partner program. So I don't know how to navigate that. And I'm looking for resources or guidance.
Michael has shared a link with us. I'm going to paste it in our little slides right here. Michael, do you want to talk about this trailhead? Have you taken it?
I started going through it, but I am neither a developer nor nor do I work for an App Exchange partner or anything like that. I was just kind of curious a little about the back end. So I don't have any more advice to give other than I did know that there were the trails available on that question.
Okay.
I can. This is Peter. I can chime in if you want.
Yes, please.
So I do all the App Exchange development for a company called Nohu. So I've done this a while. The two big questions: are you going to charge for it, or is it going to be free?
My intention is to make the application free, but it's SMS texting, so you need to sign up for an account, and you pay per text.
Gotcha. So if you are, basically you have to become an ISV partner to be part of that program. But if you're doing the app for free, so if you don't plan to make revenue off the app, then you can go through, and depending on your target market, you just have to you join and become a partner. Now it's quite an involved process, but you go through that and then you sign various forms. So if you've ever seen in the nonprofit world, there's an app called Storybank, which I have as an App Exchange app. It's a free app. It was paid for by a Force for Change grant. And through that process, I had to basically become a registered partner, but you don't have to pay for security review. But if you want it on the App Exchange, you do have to put it through security review. And if you are using a third-party system, that can be quite involved as well. We might be better off having a conversation like offline about that as to what it involves. But the primary thing is you do have to register as a partner. But as I say, if it's a free app, you can put it through security review for free. It's challenging to negotiate that the first time. But once you kind of work your way through it, and then once you're done, then you basically, you set up, you have like a license management org as people install it. The bit that Salesforce kind of gets a bit wary of is like, how are you going to support it? Do you have the resource to support it? As well as going through the security part of it. So that's why they kind of make it a bit more involved than it used to be. I mean, it used to be much simpler 5 years ago, but it's a lot more involved now.
Got it. Okay. And that's Peter Churchill talking. Is that right?
Yeah. So I don't know whether you can, I don't know what the easiest way at the end of it or something, we can send a message or you can contact through Jackie or something. But yeah, I'm happy to have a conversation offline about it, about what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
So you can find Peter and any of us through the Trailblazer community. You can send a private message that way. If you wanted to exchange contact information now, you should be able to do it through the chat and just send a private chat.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And it looks like Peter put his profile in the chat, so you should just be able to click on that.
Great,
all right. Ooh, good questions. All right. Who else has a topic or a question they'd like to discuss? Please don't be shy. There is no question that is too elementary or beginner, because if you have the question, so do others.
I'll ask one other. When I was at Tahoe Dreaming a couple weeks ago, they mentioned the Slack channel for the Salesforce community that I was not aware of. I don't know. It doesn't seem like many people are using it. Is this relatively new? Do you know? I don't know how much time to invest in trying to build up a Slack channel around Lightning development, for example.
That's a really good question. There are a lot of groups that use Slack but I don't believe that it is, it's community led as opposed to something that Salesforce, pops up and sends out notifications. So there are various groups of people within the community. Let's say, okay, so a good example is like the user group leaders. We have a Slack channel. Somebody created, invited everybody, and it's a community resource where we can all pop in at any time and have a chat or ask questions.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'll just watch it and see if it seems to take hold.
Okay, now there are, I think a better place or a good place to look is on the Trailblazer community. If you search groups with the word lightning in it, you might find that there is already something available. And if not, that might be a good place for you to start a group.
Got it.
Because then anybody who is a part of the global Trailblazer community would find that and be able to easily join. Whereas if you did something like that on Slack, there'd be no connection. So how would new members know that there's a Slack channel dedicated to Lightning or whatever Lightning topic you're trying to kick off? So that'd be where I would start.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, it looks like somebody has given us Slackforce HQ. I'm going to put this out here. I have no idea what this is, but here, let me give this to you. And who provided that? If you can unmute yourself, and because I just have a
Jackie,
label.
this is Carlos.
Carlos, okay, I didn't want to assume. Thank you so much for providing that. Can you give us some background on this?
It's a Slack that I use it, and there's a lot of known people, a lot of MVPs in there as well. And that's for people, generally speaking, is more developer oriented than an admin. And I use it a lot. I check it a lot. And of course, once there was created the Slack MVP, I spend more time on the Slack MVP, but this is a very good source.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know anything about it. Okay, so that's more focused on developers. Great.
Yeah, it has both, but for what I saw in there was more developers in there than peer admins. But if you ask a question specifically for admin, you get an answer as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have a question or a topic they want to dive into? If you don't have a question, I have a topic that I could use a little bit of guidance on for anybody who has experience in the CPQ world.
Hey, I have a quick question.
Great, please.
My name is Julie, and we work with a lot of businesses that are sort of spread across the country. So, for example, Google is a big company, obviously, and they have various locations. We're trying to figure out sort of systematically how to handle that and sort of like track revenue as a whole versus like all the individual departments and all the different locations and everything. Am I sort of going down the right path by thinking we need to do like hierarchical accounts, so using parent accounts with Google being the overarching one, and then dividing that up by locations and additionally by divisions within those locations?
Have you already mapped out your business process? Because your business process should come first, and then whatever that business process is, then we design Salesforce and any additional third-party apps necessary to fit that business process. So you always want to start with the business process first. So I would design that, figure out all of the yes/no paths, various considerations, and really challenge that business process to make sure that you've got it complete from end to end.
And could you give an example of what that might be? So I mean, I'm thinking like we obviously solicit to all these different types of Google accounts, but they're disparate, but they're also related. So I'm not really sure how to map that, what you mean by that.
Okay, so I would start with what question are you trying to answer?
Okay.
And from there, I would design, and I would flow this out on a piece of paper with boxes and arrows and yes and no's and, if this, then that. And there is a really great tool you can use to finalize that. It's called elements.cloud. And it's It's a very simple tool to use. Once you create that, you can share it with other audience members, and then everybody can take a look at it, and you can collaborate on it as well.
Okay.
Julie,
that's
could
what-
you say what your organization does? I mean, what's your use case? Because it wasn't 100% clear.
Well, pretty much the use case is resorts, and so we own many resorts across the country and the world, and these resorts attract those types of businesses for like different kinds of incentive trips and that sort of thing. And so what happens is when we look in our system today, we have maybe, I don't know, 130 different Google accounts. And so we're just trying to get a better understanding of what Google brings us, and also being able to have like all that in sort of a one-stop shop situation where with somebody, somebody in our resort in Canada looks at that piece of business that they've never worked with Google before, they see what that is bringing to the entire company versus Google, searching for Google and coming up with 180 different types of Google. If that makes sense.
So I think the other thing you have to look at too is based on, you know, what your current setup is, what is dictating that those various leads or, you know, customers, clients, resorts have come through Google. So are you using lead source to determine that?
Mm-hmm.
So what are you using to evaluate that where that business comes from?
Okay.
Which I think that when you map out your business process and you include those indicators, so let's just say if lead source equals, you know, Google ABC, whatever, then you can start to group those if that's the case. If that's not the case and you're grouping them differently, you know, using some other indicator or some parent-child hierarchy, then your process is going to be completely different in Salesforce. But that's why it's back to the process map.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Michael says parent accounts and that hierarchy is what I would do. So
that's sort of where I'm leaning. I just didn't know if there was any kind of gotchas around that, or sort of like a litmus test, or, you know.
So if you have questions around it, you know, one of the things you can do is build it out in your sandbox and test it and say, okay, does this meet my requirements? Does this give me what I was looking for? Or does it now give me 10 other questions that I didn't realize I had because now I'm looking at data differently?
Okay.
Which is good because you always want to be challenging your business process to make sure that it is complete end to end with all of the different scenarios.
Okay.
All right. Great. Thanks for asking the question. All right. Who else has a topic? I'll check our chat real quick and see if we have anything in there or any hands raised.
Jackie.
Yes.
Hi, it's Rob Kaplan. How are you?
Good. Good to hear your voice, Rob.
Wonder if maybe I could explore the post that I put up on the community group a little bit more about writing a file to a file in documents from an external system. I had some short answers from some fellow community users. One was a referral by you, and thank you for making that referral. It's helpful.
You're welcome.
Still a little bit unclear, though. You know, the binary question sounds like we've answered it. You know, the binary question being yes, no. Can you write a file inside of files and documents from an external system? The answer seems to be yes, so that's good. I'm just wondering if there's anybody that's done any documentation on how to do that. Alex had posted something. It took me to the dev site. You know, obviously there's a lot of content there about SOAP and API access. I'm not a developer, so it's a little bit Greek to me, and I was just looking to see if there might be some sort of simpler tutorial, perhaps not even this is how you do it, more like at a high level, these are the steps to be followed, because I might end up having to hire a developer, and I want to be able to explain our business need.
Okay, I think we've got a couple of developer-minded people on the line, so if they're still on, please chime in.
I mean, this is Peter again. In terms of, like, are you looking to do this as like is this a user doing it, or is this like two systems doing it?
So thanks, Peter. I'll try and keep the context as short as I can. So ask as many questions as you like. But imagine we have a sales force in the field and we have a price list that changes a lot. So let's say every 7 days we want to post the latest version of the price list inside of Salesforce. So we keep them inside the platform, but they know that they can always go to the same location and get the latest price sheet. So it'll be posted automatically from one external system to an internal system. Go ahead.
What are you posting, like a PDF? What are you actually posting?
Let's call it a PDF for now. Sure.
And the system that's generating it, it's like, but it's a system generated thing. It's not someone like downloading something and sending it. You're looking for a system to automatically log in and post it, right?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, the standard. I mean, most of the APIs, the REST API for sure would support that. You know, the main challenge in all those things is the authentication. If you've got, when the system and systems are working together and they can't put in a username and password, then they have to do the authentication programmatically.
Yep.
So most of the integrations I built, that's the bit you got to get right. Now Salesforce, so it would depend, a lot of it depends on what does the source system support, what is it capable of. You know, the most common mechanism now is something called OAuth, which is Salesforce supports pretty widely. And, you know, I think once you've worked that bit out, then, you know, as long as and it depends what the other system, kind of what sort of platform it is, but, you know, the two common APIs that people would use would be the SOAP, which is kind of more Microsoft centric, and then REST, which is supported by most web systems and most modern architectures. But there's lots of examples in the dev boards about how you post a file, and you know, you've then got to just post it and then probably associate it with the right record or upload a new version, and that's just a coding challenge. It's not, I mean, there's lots of examples of how to do that, but it's, the challenge with files is a bit different from the old documents. Is with files, you'd probably be looking to upload a new version of an existing file. So
That's correct.
Download it. So you just have to get that. Process correct. But it has to be, and that's why the one thing to point out on the authentication is, especially if you're doing it through files, you probably need to. It has to be using a user that has the right level of access. So normally, if you've got some sort of integration user in Salesforce, that's the one that you could typically set up for the other system to log in and post the file. So
that's how we expected to do that, yes.
But most of it's going to be, what does the source system support in terms of authentication? And like, does it have the means to store authentication credentials? And then, you know, then it's just like what APIs can it invoke? Can it invoke a REST-based one like through HTTPS, or can it invoke some sort of SOAP, or is there something, you know, is there something else you need to do? But those would be the main questions I would be asking.
Okay. That's helpful too.
If I can tack on to that, you know, if this is something, this is Gaurav State. I'm more of an admin than a coder, but this reminds me of something I built, which is a simple email service, like invoices at my domain, where people can submit invoices and it creates an attachment out of that. So depending on how scalable and how the volume you're talking about, there's many ways to kind of to hit this, and that's kind of there's a lot of ways to get attachments and files into the system, that being one of them. So I can forward invoices from my email to this address, and it creates a custom object record and attaches whatever's onto the email to the record. So you know, there's I think kind of getting back to what we were saying earlier in terms of the business process, like depending on how big of a thing you need, are you going to have hundreds of different things that are coming in, or is it just one price book that's just going to be updated once a week, and there's no other kind of similar scenarios that you're going to need to cover? There may be some other approaches you could also get.
Well, and what was your name again?
My name's Gaurav Singh. Somehow I'm not showing up on the list.
So Gora, the preliminary use case is just the price book. So
Yeah.
you're right. But as we all know, we all work with users. These things tend to grow over time. So,
Yeah.
but at the moment, you're right. It's just the price book.
Right.
Thanks.
So if you want to, proof of concept there or something, you could do it that way. It's hard coded. This one email service you can set up, and it'll just update that one file every time. And then if people want to do something more sophisticated, you can go there. But Salesforce just has an amazing amount, a number of options in terms of how to pull data in. So I think Peter was hitting on a ton of them. I just want to put mail services up as another possible option.
Okay, great.
I'm using it myself.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Rob, are you using products in Salesforce? The actual products feature?
Yes.
So if you use products within Salesforce and it's already complete, and I may have missed something here, could this be simplified to then just create a Visualforce page with some button that says generate the price book? Anybody would have access to it and they could click it and it would generate the latest and greatest? Did I just simplify that way too much?
You'd never be accused of that, Jackie. I hadn't considered that at all. And I think partly that's because I have a blind spot, and that is I actually haven't seen this price book that they want to have on the file. But my guess is that because it's a salesman's version, it probably has sections like, these are parts of products that we're trying to use up in a hurry, so we're dropping the price here, or these are products we have a plethora of, or these products are no longer available in certain area codes, zip codes, or territories. So I think it goes beyond what I would typically find in the existing products catalog. That's not to say I couldn't expand the product catalog to incorporate what you're saying, but I think it's a lot more exceptional. How's that?
Okay.
But I like your thought, because why not? Why not just keep all that in products and just publish the product catalog right out of products? Seemed to make sense.
And I just recently worked with a developer who did this for me, and we actually did it in a PE org, which was interesting.
Wow.
And so, and we did it all through Visualforce and static resources. I would say the only drawback, and we also just built a product sorter so that the system administrator could control the order that they want to see the products in.
Yep.
I would say the only thing that I have not yet been able to figure out how to control is the layout on the printed version. We get some funny page breaks.
Yeah.
But it was a quick solution, gave them what they needed, and they were, and they can manage it as far as the number of products or the order of products. So I don't know, maybe give it some thought.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
You are welcome. All right, who else has a topic to explore? We have a question in the chat asking if anybody has tried the new survey tool in Spring 18. Anyone on the line? Carlos chimed in and said you need the Health Cloud to use survey. So are we saying that survey tool is only available if you are using the Health Cloud?
It's available. This is Chris. It's available to Health Cloud users. You can acquire it through licensing for everyone else, but it's included in the Health Cloud service.
Okay. All right. That's an important distinction.
I mean, this is Peter. I asked the question because it was in the Spring 18 webinar and they were showing it off, and the implication was that suddenly everyone's going to have access to use surveys. It looked kind of nice, but I wasn't sure. I think it's only in sandboxes. I don't think it's perhaps. I just wondered whether I just kind of caught the end of it, and I was not something I'd actually heard about at all. So I was like, well, has anybody else done more with it or heard more about it? Because it was news to me that it was going to be like this GA for every org to have access to. Yeah, it sounded like you got like one free survey and then you could buy more, but that was all I kind of took away from it. But it looked. I mean, lots of people ask about surveys, so I thought, well, if that's true, that could be huge for a lot of my customers.
Yeah, that is a common question. I was going to ask, do you happen to know if that was something that they built or if that was an acquisition?
I mean, it looked pretty native, so I don't know. I say it was just, I was watching the Spring 18 webinar and they were like, oh, while we're here, we're releasing surveys. And I was like, oh. So I just wondered if everybody else had kind of got more information than I had, because that was one of those things which was news to me, and I thought maybe I just missed out on something, but it sounds like it's kind of news to everyone else.
Interesting. All right, well, we'll see what other people come up with. All right, so Carlos, I'm pasting this formula. So Carlos has a question about this formula, and I'm putting it here on the screen so everyone can see it. Carlos, what issue are you having?
Yes, I just found this on one of the orgs, and as of right now, it's showing the result in there is showing January 6th. When it shouldn't. The name of the field should be a week from today formula. I know that I can take today plus 7, but I haven't used formulas in a while, and I'm pretty sure that is on the values in there, the plus, the assumptions that you have in there, 0, today plus 2, plus this to 1, and so forth.
Okay, what is the name of this formula you said?
My formula on the field, the name of the field is called A Week from Today Formula. It's one of the orgs that I'm maintaining. And as it runs right now, it's showing February 6, 2018. And it should not. It should be February 9, 2018.
So they're defining a week as 7 days.
Yes.
Okay.
And as I said, I could have another simple formula today plus 7, but since I found this one on the org already, I'm just want to make sure that it's working properly,
Huh. Does anyone have any thoughts on this formula?
Do you have any idea what it's supposed to be doing in that org?
No, man, it's one of those orgs that, you get it.
Oh, yeah, I know.
You've been there.
Okay, so a week from today, that's not that, sorry for the mumbling there, or the stammering. I don't know that is what you would want to use a week from today. So 7 days from today, that does that take into consideration months with 30 days, 31 days, 28 days? Does it automatically calculate that? I would have to play with this.
Yeah, well, a simple one is just
say. What's the part about 1900 up there?
Excuse me?
Well, I'm not understanding the beginning part where it's deleting today's date from 1900, from the January 7th, 1900?
I'm going to explain the way that it was explained to me. I mean, if you Google any dates validation, majority of them use a far away, way back in the past date, when you're doing these kinds of calculations in there but that's all that I have seen. If you Google that, that's how you find them. You can be 1900, it can be 1950, somewhere way back.
Yeah.
It's telling you which day it is: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah. So and it's set up so that I'm not sure. Let's say Monday. I'm not sure which day 7 is, but let's say that if today is, let's say today is Monday, and the date, January 7th, 1900 was also a Monday. So if the mod is 0, that means it is a Monday, and it's going to bump today to, it's going to give you today plus 2 days, so Wednesday. If today is Tuesday, it's also going to give you Wednesday. It's going to add 1. If it is Wednesday and the mod is 2, it's going to bump it a week to Wednesday. If it's 3, then it's Thursday today, and it's going to give you Wednesday next week. So these are all focused on returning the same day of the week, no matter what day today is. Does that make sense?
It does, at least for me, it does.
Okay, and that date is kind of a standard known date in history that people use with this Mod 7 formula in order to determine what day of the week a particular date is.
Yeah, I have seen that.
So that's 7th of Jan 1900 is a Sunday. So today minus Sunday.
A Sunday, okay. Okay, so that's a Sunday. So in this case, 0 would mean that today is a Sunday, and so it's going to add 2 days. So it's always going to return a Tuesday. This formula is always going to return a Tuesday, no matter what today is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that the formula is wrong exactly based on the mod in there. So those 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and they're the wrong ones.
Or they have mislabeled the field. It depends on what they were trying to return.
Let me see here if I have any comments here. I say very much. The second, number 1 is for Monday, number 2 is for Tuesday, and all the way. So, I think they assumed that was exactly what I explained before, that 1917 was a Sunday. Right. But the numbers here on like the 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way to the left. Yeah. They put it wrong. So that's what I was trying to understand here, what I need to change in there to show it. Because
what are you trying to return?
A week from today. So the return should be as it is now, as this formula shows in there now. I get a return, I get the date as February 6, 2018, and it should be February 9, 2018.
Yeah, the formula you want is simply today plus 7.
Oh yeah, no, I know that. As a matter, I already mentioned that, but if it's not broken, don't fix it. This one, in this case, is broken, and I can just replace the formula for another one and say today plus 7. But
Yeah. This one is really focused on returning, no matter what day of the week today is, it's always going to return a value that's the same day of the week, and I believe it's going to return a Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't follow, but that's okay. I know that I can get it today plus 7. I wanted to have this formula here to do exactly the same. That's my concern here.
Well, this formula is not going to return a week from today, no matter what today is, because unless today happens to be Tuesday, and then you're going to get your today plus 7 formula. But all of these other are based on looking at what day of the week today is and adjusting for that so that whatever it returns, it's going to return the following Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, my guess is that, I don't know quite, but normally these formulas you see is when they're trying to work out business days, right? So you're trying to say, if today is a Friday, then set the next date to be Monday. Don't schedule something for Saturday and Sunday.
Exactly.
Whenever you see these formulas, that's typically what they're trying to get at. But today can also be a bit tricky because it can sometimes be affected by time zones and all sorts of things. So you have to be really careful with these formulas.
But this definitely sounds like it. I agree. It definitely returns the next Tuesday. It sounds like it must be tied to some sort of, if you request something today, we guarantee it for you by next Tuesday. And so it tells you when Tuesday is, which might be less than a week.
That's right. It might be in 2 days or 1 day. Although if today happens to be Tuesday, it's going to give us a week.
Right.
Maybe Tuesday is a deadline, and they're like, well, how long do we have?
Or maybe they have a truck that goes out on Tuesdays.
Who knows? But thanks for the help.
Sure.
Yeah, you've educated on us, so that's great. So we have decided that a week from today, the formula should actually be today plus 7.
Yep.
Okay. Fantastic. I will clean this up before I post it.
Should be today with
Oh, the parens.
yeah, with parens.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a question if no one else does, but I'll let someone else have first crack.
Go ahead. Floor's yours.
I haven't begun playing with this, so it's mostly a question of if anyone knows if this is hard, medium, or impossible. I've got a custom object on which, well, let's name it. It's expenses, on which people are putting receipts for their expenses. So, for example, taking a picture of the receipt at a restaurant and attaching it as a file. Is there a way using Drawloop or Apsona Document Merge or something else that I don't know about where I could create either a report or a PDF that showed the expense record field or fields and the image, the attached file that's using Salesforce files?
The first place I would check into is Conga Composer. I don't know if they can do the images, but that is the first third-party app that I would look at. And they can also extract relationships, as many relationships as you have for a particular object if you need that. So that's the first place I would start my research. Anyone else?
I mean, I've coded it, but I don't know how you would do it. I mean, you could build like Lightning components, or in Classic you could build Visualforce to do it. But so basically, if you have a file like a chatter file behind the scenes, it has like a preview URL behind the scenes. It creates URLs that you can then reference and pull them out and say, and then basically Salesforce will show it in different sizes on the page. So there are ways you could definitely build a page where you said, you know, and again, I think in Lightning it would be easier, but you could basically put it and say, here's the expense value, and then kind of render the image with I mean, ideally it would be image, and then you better click on it and blow it up or something. Yeah, I would think technically you could build it, because I think all of the pieces are there for you. But I think unless someone like Conga's built that behind the scenes, you'd have to have someone would have to kind of plug all those pieces together. But I do think all the pieces are there.
Yeah, and I guess the other question would be, the other differentiator too is, do you want to see this online, or is this something that you need to see, you know, printed in the field? Because if it's online, it sounds like Peter's suggestion is the better path to go. Because I don't know about. You'd have to ask Conga if they can do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I was mostly curious if anyone here knew it was doable. We have Drawloop, so I'll be calling them, or looking in their documentation. I figure if I can do it online, like what Peter just told me means it's solvable. It's the amount of effort. If I can do it online, then worst case scenario is, I'm thinking in terms of like if the auditor wants to see this expenses receipt. You know, if I have to build a Visualforce page, it's doable and printable.
There are apps that are specifically dedicated to that too. Oh gosh, what is the name of that? Expensify? Is that right?
Yeah, it is right, and I don't love it.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I shouldn't say that on this open call.
Nope.
I checked out Expensify, and we decided to build our own thing in Salesforce because we can report on it, and it's tied to user, and we can do approval processes. Blah 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 blah.
So okay, and everybody's entitled to their opinion and their experiences, especially based on your process needs. So don't feel bad about that. I would say that if there is a company out there that builds it, there's got to be other companies out there that build it. So we might just want to exhaust, researching other options before you start to go out and build your own, or at least when you're doing your product research and your comparison.
Yep.
Has anyone else used any kind of expense app that links to Salesforce?
Well, I did that Trailhead module where you build a little expense app, but I don't think that counts.
But good for you for doing Trailhead. Yay. All right. Good questions. Concur, that was the other one. Thank you, Gaurav. So Concur is another one out there. And I would just say make sure you do your due diligence on it, on all of them. Make sure that they meet your needs. But that is another one, concur.com. All right. Anyone else? You guys are killing it today with these questions. Great variety.
Hi, question. This is Heather, and I'm wondering, does Financial Force offer anything similar for an expense app? I know they do financial. I'm just not sure.
Ooh, good place to look.
Just curious. I mean, don't quote me on that, but I'm thinking Financial Force fits nicely into Salesforce. I could have tried it myself, but I guess somebody else is going to do it. Just tossing it out.
I'm just taking our little notes here. I spelled that wrong. Expensive finance. That's right. All right, that's another good one to look into. Anyone else? Let me check our participants window here and see if anyone's got their hand up. Nope. I do have a note here that says Expensify and Concur are the two biggies out there. In our case, the fact that they weren't free was a factor. Oh, but it didn't take him much to build his own solution. So there's that. That's positive.
So that's me. That was Michael. I built the solution. The solution is great, and really, I mean, to pat myself on the back, awesome in Lightning and on mobile. The only thing I haven't yet looked into is if I can do this exporting of the image for the case really of the auditors. Having the images there for managers to look and improve your expense report, that's all fine. It's like the version 1.5 that I'm about to work on, which is when my accountant says, if the auditor asks about this expense from 6 months ago by this person, how do I show them that, yes, we have a receipt for it? And if I could make it simpler than her going into the record and then that would be awesome. So I will look into it and maybe report back.
That would be great. Another piece for consideration is storage. You know, how long do you want to store that? And do you want to store it within Salesforce? Do you want it to be then pushed out to another application, if that's even possible, or another storage data warehouse after X period of time? Because I would imagine you probably would start eating up your storage pretty quickly. I would put that on my list of things to research.
Good point.
Okay. Gaurav also says, also preventing deleting on files and attachments requires code. So that's another thing that you're going to want to. So all of these comments that we're making goes back to process and deciding. So somebody makes an expense, how do they log in? What do they do? What are they uploading? Can they delete it? Should it be moved to another location after so many days, that kind of stuff. So that is where we get into what does the process, the business process look like? And these are important too, because in 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, when somebody says, oh, we need to modify our business process, you can pull up this document easily and go, okay, this is what we're doing, and then figure out where you need to either break it, change it, and then easily see where you're going to have effects within your Salesforce org. and you're not trying to recreate what is going to break. You'll know. All right, time check. Looks like we've got about 7 minutes left. So anyone else have a topic they want to throw out there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about reporting. I have some reporting requirements where it's about 20 reports for a given account, and they're identical across like hundreds of accounts. I'm wondering if there's a way to automate that. I'm not a developer, so if there would be a way kind of more simple to automate that.
When you say automated, are you talking about just clicking the run button, or what needs to happen with that report?
No, just for any like changes that would come up, you know, rather than having to update the reports for, you know, 20 reports for hundreds of accounts, which would take, you know, a lot of manual work. I'm wondering if there's a way, even if there's a third-party app that kind of can provide things like that.
And when you're talking about changes, are you talking about changing the criteria of the report or changing the headers in the report?
Yeah, I mean, really just anything within the reports.
And where are you launching these reports from?
From Salesforce.
So from the reports tab?
Yes.
Okay, because there is a way, and I'll have to see if I can find a link to the how-tos, but there's a way to create a single report. You can put a link to that report, let's say on the account page, and when you click the account page report link, it will populate the report with that account ID, and it will give you all the information. So you would, you know, that report would live on all of your accounts as a shell, and then when you click it, it populates with what is needed. So you would only essentially have one report that all of your accounts basically have access to, or the people who own your accounts have access to, and they can just click that button anytime. So any modifications you would need, you would only need to make it to a single report.
Okay. Would that, do you know offhand if that would translate to a dashboard so that, you know, I could do it once for all 20 reports on the account?
I've never had to do that. You can add filters to reports. I don't know that you can make the filter for the account name dynamic. Does anyone have experience with that, Peter? Have you done that?
I have not done anything like that, no.
Yeah, I don't know that, because I don't know that you can launch a dashboard from, or access a dashboard from, let's say, an account record. But that sounds pretty darn cool.
Okay. Another question.
Hello.
Carlos, go ahead.
Yeah, I have seen it. You take the URL from the dashboard, and you hack the URL, and you put that, you create a button on your account, and that's where you get it.
So with hacking the URL, how does that translate to Lightning going forward?
Oops. Well, I have seen it exactly on Classic, where you will create a button, okay, on the account, and or whatever object that you have, and on that you will create in there, you have the URL would be pointing exactly to that to the dashboard or report, whatever you want it. Going forward, since URLs are changing, you have to probably follow the new guidelines to get the URLs in there. But I think that's the only difference in there.
So I would make the recommendation, those are good points, and I didn't even know that you could do that with a URL hack. So that's semi sort of promising in Lightning. I would say if it were me, I would go to Answers and post that question on Answers so that you can get maybe a lot of different recommendations, or maybe a common recommendation from the global user community. That's what I would do. And I will look for the instructions on how to do that report using PVO, and I'm trying to remember what that parameter value something, which is the piece that when you launch it from the account, it grabs the account ID and drops it into the report, which makes it then dynamic for every time you run it from an account. So I'll look up that and include it in our post.
Good.
And they have a support. That's officially supported in Lightning. In Classic, it's still a URL hack, but in Lightning, they actually provided an officially supported beans, which is different than the way you do it in Classic, where you can pass. But again, just for reports.
Oh, and so is this Michael speaking?
Sorry,
No?
this is Billy.
Okay. Looks like Michael just gave us a link. Michael, is this the link? Does this go along with what I was talking about with the PVO?
I think so. As quickly as I can skim while listening.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the Lightning version, which is officially supported. There's nothing from Salesforce about passing it into Classic, because it was never officially supported in Classic. It was always it was probably the most popular URL hack out there. That plus email hacks. But I think
okay.
It's a very useful trick in Lightning or Classic. They're just different. In Lightning, it's officially supported. In Classic, it's a URL hack.
Okay, and good thing to note that in Lightning, it looks like they're referring to as FVO for filter value.
Yeah, it's a different structure than URL, so the hacks from Classic will not work for that.
Okay, so I think that might be your answer. At least maybe it might be your starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And the same dashboard.
Actually, bulk update of reports is pretty tricky. There was an app called Padaya, which is apparently coming back, which did have some functionality to like mass edit, kind of pick list values and things like that in reports. But beyond that, I'm not aware of any app that lets you kind of do those things. It's pretty tricky. I mean, it's technically possible.
So you're saying that Panaya is, you said you think that Panaya is coming back for reporting mass edit?
It's supposed to relaunch like sometime pretty soon. Hopefully, it was a very cool application, and it disappeared for a while, and then it's coming back.
Okay, that's great. That's good news.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are actually, this is probably the first time we've ever done this. We are actually at our 3 o'clock cutoff time. So I certainly don't want to keep everybody longer than this. I appreciate our Come Save Us MVPs who jumped on today, Peter and Gaurav, to give us some wonderful advice and guidance, and a much appreciation to everybody else who jumped on to talk about these various topics. This was great stuff. Carlos, thank you for jumping in and giving us both your question and your recommendations as well. So everyone, have a great weekend, and thank you for joining us. We will see you on February 16th.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.